Hello, sir.
Yes, please. Yeah. Go ahead.
Can you change the resolution of recording, sir?
Sure, sure.
It is
Yeah.
not
I'll
clear.
change.
Like
Sure. I will. Resolution, right? You said that day, change layout, spotlight. Yeah. I have changed it. Hibernate. Okay, guys. Today we are going to discuss about Hibernate. Okay. What exactly the Hibernate? Okay. Normally for Hibernates, we will call it as a framework. We will call it as a ORM framework. Hibernate will call it as ORM framework. So what is exactly ORM? Okay. Before that, we'll read off some what exactly this Hibernate means. Okay. Hibernate is a ORM tool given by it is given by Gavin King. It is developed by Gavin King. Okay. And what is the purpose of this Hibernate means to interact with the JDBC even by using to interact with the database we'll use Hibernate. So before till now, what is the which one we are using for connecting with the database, guys?
JDBC.
Sorry, that JDBC, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, till now, if our Java application want to interact with the database, till now we are using a JDBC for connecting the database, correct? Our Java application. Now, our Java application want to interact with the database means now we are going to use of Hibernate. Okay, how exactly the Hibernate is going to interact with the database means, guys, here the Hibernate is extension to the JDBC. Hibernate is extension to the JDBC, and along with that, internally Hibernate will use JDBC only. Okay, internally it will use JDBC only to interact with the database. Okay, now, and apart from this, here it is a purely persistent framework. Okay, as part of only DAO layer only we will use Hibernate. Okay, and along with this, the Hibernate application can run with server and without server. Okay, if you want to for core Java applications, if you want to use of Hibernate, you can use that. If you want for the web applications, you want to use Hibernate, then you can use Hibernate for web applications as well. Okay, the Hibernate application can run with the server and without server, both it can run it. Okay, now coming to the ORM. What is mean by ORM means object relational mapping. What exactly object relational mapping means? Representing the relational data. Okay, representing the relational data in the form of object. Relational data means database data. Database table data you want to represent in the form of object. Okay, now how exactly we are going to, let's say assume for suppose in case of JDBC you are trying to create some table, or you are trying to insert some data, or you are trying to update something. Okay, let's say whenever you are going to insert some data into the database, but that time the whatever the table you are going to insert the data, the table itself does not exist in the database, just assume. Okay, then in that case the JDBC will throw the exception, right? If the table itself is not there in the database, it will throw exception. Is it correct or not? Right? Now, but in case of Hibernate, it will not throw any exception. If it is not there, it will create the table and then it will insert the data. Okay, that is based on some dialect that we'll see in depth soon. Okay, what is the configuration exactly? Now, how exactly Hibernate is going to map the our Java class with database table? Okay, let's say for suppose you want to insert your Java object. Let's say I have created one simple Java object. Let's close it all. Let me Through practical only you will go. Okay. Now anything is fine. Go here. Quick start. Just click on this. One application project is just created. Okay. Leave it about this all. What it is there inside all those things for time being. Let's say for suppose if I'm created remove this. Just refresh it. Yeah. Class. I'm going to create one class. Okay. Class is just assume employee or whatever it is. Employee class. Okay. So what exactly employee contains, guys? Just some data. Just assume anything simply int id. Okay. String name and float salary and one more some property and one more, let's say string some designation. Okay. Designation. Now what is this class, guys? This is simple class, right? So what are the properties it contains? This is a simple class.
ID.
Yeah. So what is my requirement is if I'm simply setting some data inside this created employee object, employee dot set id, set name, set salary, set designation, and directly I want to save this object. I don't want write SQL query, all those things. Okay. Directly I want to save this employee object. Okay. Create some table, employee table with id, name, salary, and designation, and save the data. I don't want write SQL query. Then so whichever table you want to going to create in the database, with that we should map this class, right or not? You are not writing query, at least we should map this class with database table. Okay. Before that, let's see, in any Java application we will have objects which representing the data. Okay. Object means, let's say if I'm creating employee object. Okay. Let's say control one more class. Everything is practical only, guys. Okay. Client. Okay. Next main. So if you want to save the employee data, first we need to set the data, right? Correct or not? Equal to new employee. Now emp dot set id some 100 or 111 something, whatever it is. Emp dot set name or some so whatever it is. Emp dot set salary or some 1000 dot 9f. It is a float, right? Emp dot set designation is lead. Okay. Now so I have created some data. I want to save my data directly with the employee object only. Okay. Normally in case of DDBC, we are getting this data, we have created some query, and then for that query we are setting through positional parameter, we are setting the data, right or not, for question marks. Now in this case my requirement is directly I want to save employee object. So in that case, okay. Now let's go to the point. The data that we want to store in the database. To store the data in the database, we need tables. Compulsory, right? To store any data in the table, so compulsory we need of tables, right? These tables will call it as a relational entities. Relational entities. Now, if you want to store these objects into the database tables directly without using any SQL, compulsory we need to map the class with the tables. Okay, we need to give some relation between our Java class to with the database table. Okay, so each object of our employee object is representing one row in the database table. Okay, this kind of mapping between object, employee object, and table is called as object relational mapping. Let's say in the database, in the database, let's say this is my, not this one, this is my Pojo class. Guys, one more thing, the terminology in the Hibernate is, we'll call this as a Pojo class. Pojo means plain old Java object, or else you'll call it as a bean. Okay, what is Java bean, guys? A class, okay, with some properties. For that, some setters and getters is required. We'll call that as a bean. But in case of Hibernate, we'll call it as a Pojo. We'll call it as a Pojo class. The name itself is Pozo, means plain old Java object. We'll call it as a Pozo class. Guys, now next. In this case, here the class in Java. Here class in Java is referred to table in database. Table in whatever the class name that is there, the same with the same. There might be some table in the database. Okay, that configuration we will do in the mapping file, okay, soon. And instance of object, once object is created, employee class object, and we are setting some data for that, that row will call it as a database table row. Okay, and whatever the attributes, what is the employee attributes? ID, name, salary, designation. These are attributes of employee. With these names, I want to create one more, whatever the data that is part of employee ID, I need to store in some in the table with some column name, right? So for this, whatever the data that is part of this ID, I need to store in table of some column name. What is the name of the column? We'll give some employee ID column name in the database, employee name in the database column for employee table, same salary for designation. Okay, now let's say the most important, we'll see practically, guys, this is only theoretical part. The most important ORM tools are Hibernate, Toplink, JPA, Bybatics, JDO, like that. There are many ORM tools are there, okay, but ORM Hibernate is open source and it is most popular one. Okay, now let's see what is the disadvantage of GDBC. What is the disadvantage of GDBC means? Let's say if you are trying to, if you are opening some connection with the, by using JDBC code, okay, compulsory it is the responsibility of the programmer to close the connection. Okay, that is one part, and compulsory we need to write that code inside try and catch only. Otherwise, it will give some exceptions. Here, no need to write that one. And along with that, if you are trying to modify some code inside SQL table or something, if you are trying to modify some table, added extra column also in the database, then it will not modify, it will not execute our Java code. Okay, compulsory we need to modify the code, we need to rebuild it and redeploy, then only it will work in case of JDBC. Okay, but all those these drawbacks we can overcome by using Hibernate. Along with that, there are many features as part of Hibernate. Guys, till now the disadvantage up to now, is it clear? Any point is not understanding, also tell me. I'll repeat it again. I'll make it clear.
It's the last point in disadvantages of JDBCs.
Yes. So in JDBC, if you're writing some query, okay, in JDBC, let's say, why do you need to go for that? Let me open. If you're writing some queries to execute in the JDBC code, okay, compulsory. So if there is any modifying in the table structure, okay, after program has created, the table structure is modified, okay, added a new column or something, okay, then in that case the program will not work out. Okay, compulsory we need to, if you are modifying the database table also, compulsory our Java code need to modify, then only the JDBC code will work out. But in case of Hibernate, it is not required. Automatically Hibernate will create of that, it will create the table for that extra column whichever you are modified, with that combination only it will do that. Okay, now we will see that practically. Is it clear, ma? If you are
Yes,
modifying
yes.
anything in the database or in the code, compulsory we need to touch somewhere in the database or in Java program. But in the case of Hibernate, we no need to do that. Okay, the Hibernate internally it will check that whether it is correctly is mapping is there or not. If not there, then automatically Hibernate will create that table as per the requirement which you have given based on the POSO. Okay, now let's see. And along with that, so there are some advantages also. Along with that, there are some advantages. What are those advantages? Means now let's say, so till now, inheritance, associations, collections, these are not supported in JDBC. Okay. Now all these inheritances, inheritance, association means mappings. One object is relating on another object. Okay. There is some relation is there, and the collection of object storing. This is this also all this will be supported by Hibernate. Okay. Now in case of Hibernate, if you are saving the derived class means subclass, then its base class object also will be stored in the database. This is what we'll call it as a inheritance. Okay, and Hibernate supports relationships or associations or mappings. We'll call it as one to many, many to one to many. Like that, there is some one object is depending on multiple objects. Let's say, for example, one employee has some multiple address. We are working in our company. Just assume we are working in some company. You have some temporary address where you are staying, and you have some permanent address also, right? So then in that case, the employee contains of multiple addresses. Then in that case, one to one employee contains many addresses. Then in that case, we need of mapping of one to many. Okay, like that, many to many, one to many, like that. There are many relationships. Four relationships are there. Even Hibernate will support the relationships or mappings, or we'll call it as associations. It will support by Hibernate. That is of next point. Along with that, it will support of collections like list, set, map. This also will support as part of Hibernate. Okay, and apart from that, so in case of JDBC, so without even primary key also it will work out. But in case of Hibernate, it will not work out. Even Hibernate, it will generate automatically the primary key for our table. Okay, if we are not creating that compulsory, we need to give some configuration mapping. Okay, and Hibernate internally it can generate the primary keys if you are not able to do that. Okay, that also facility will be provided by Hibernate. It will internally use of some sequence. It will create one sequence in the database. That name of the sequence is Hibernate underscore sequence. Okay, for generating the numbers. That also we'll see practically soon. Okay, and Hibernate has capability to generate primary keys automatically while we are storing the records into the database. And Hibernate has its own query language. Okay, till now we are writing SQL queries, right? But Hibernate has its own query language. We'll call that as a HQL. Hibernate query language. We'll call that as a Hibernate query language, which is database independent. Okay, and apart from that, if we change the database, then also our application will work as HQL is database independent. Okay, now let's say for time being you are using of our Oracle database. Okay, in future you are modifying your Oracle to MySQL or Sybase or DB2 or whatever it is. Okay, then we no need to do of much changes. Only if you are modifying the credentials and dialect, automatically Hibernate will create the tables based on depending on the database. Okay, now next part is, while we are inserting any record, if you don't have a particular table in the database, in JDBC it will rise up view does not exist or table does not exist, error will throw that. But in case of Hibernate, if it is not found any table in the database, then it will create, then it can create it. Okay, that provision is also there. And Hibernate also will support of one more beautiful feature that is called caching mechanism. Caching mechanism. Why do we need caching mechanism? Means it will reduce the number of round trips between the database and our application. Okay, let's say you are executing of same query 100 times. Okay, same query 100 times. In Hibernate, if you are calling the same query 100 times, first time it will call and it will store that results in the one some cache. Okay, if you are calling the same query again, it will not hit the database. From from cache it will take the data and then it will give that back. So it will not hit the database. That is one. Because of this, the Hibernate will improve the performance. Okay, that is also one good feature as part of Hibernate. And Hibernate also supports annotation based. Till now we are doing of XML based. Just assume that. Okay, I will show you both XML as well as annotation based. Both will do that. Okay, Hibernate will support for annotations as well. And along with that, there is one more main thing is dialect. Okay, what is the use of dialect? Means normally in case of for depending on the database which you are going to use in your application. Based on that, we need to use one dialect class. Based on dialect only, Hibernate will create the tables appropriately in the database. Based on, let's say, some data types, some there is some structure will change for database to database. Okay, if you are giving the dialect, if you are at the time of configuration file, in the configuration file, if you are giving the dialect, based on dialect, Hibernate will create the tables in the database. Okay, now we will see practically, guys, soon. Now we are going to practical parts. Now, the main three things compulsory we need to write to connect with the database with Hibernate. Using Hibernate means one is POSO classes. POSO means, what is mean by POSO, guys? Plain old Java object or bean classes. Okay, Java bean. Okay, Java bean. Hibernate mappings. So, as part of Hibernate mapping file, as part of Hibernate mapping file, we will give the relation between our Java class to database table. Whenever you are saving Java object directly, whatever the data that is part of Java object, it will be stored in the database. That mapping we will give inside Hibernate mapping files. We will call it as a HBM files also. Okay, the next one, Hibernate configuration files. What exactly the Hibernate configuration file contains means it contains the information about the database related details, the URL, username, driver class, dialect, all along with that. We will give some more information also. That is Hibernate mapping files. Whatever the mapping files that we are created, the reference we need to give inside Hibernate configuration file. Okay, now, what is the structure of Hibernate mapping file and Hibernate configuration file? That we'll see. This is the syntax for Hibernate mapping file. Syntax for Hibernate mapping file. The first tag, this is XML, guys. XML part. First tag is Hibernate mapping. First part is Hibernate mapping, and inside that, what is the name of the class? There is a less than. This is a tags, guys. Okay, less than class is a tag. Name of the class. We need to give our fully qualified name of our POSO class or bean class. And so whatever the class that is associated here name, to which table you want to associate this class, we need to give table equal to table name. Hibernate, what it will do means whatever the Plozo class hit here, it is whatever the mention you mentioned here, it will be associated with database table in this table whatever you mentioned here. Okay, this is syntax, guys. Okay, we'll see. And ID means this is for primary key. Okay, normally for other than primary key we will give as property tag. Okay, for primary key we will give as ID. Okay, ID. What is the name of the attribute in the POSO class which you want to mention as primary key? Okay, the variable name and column name and database name, name of the column in the database, and type, what type of that attribute is. Okay, for other columns other than primary key, we need to use of property tag. Property tag, name of the property, column name and type. Okay, like that we need to mention for all the columns. Okay, now let's go and see practical, guys. So this is our employee class. I want to create a Hibernate mapping file for this employee class. So what are the major things, guys, that we need to develop? Major parts, three things that we need to create. One is POSO class, right? The POSO class is I have created. The next part is, what is the next one?
Hibernate mappings.
Hibernate
Mapping.
mapping file, guys. Hibernate mapping file. The third one is Hibernate configuration file. Okay, for this. Okay, now let's go and see somewhere. I think I have created some. Okay, now let's go and create a Maven project. We need to create resources. Okay, Java main. Create one folder. In case of Maven, the XML files you need to keep inside resources, guys. So you resources. Create one folder, resources. Okay, under this, create that employee. Control N, XML. Search for XML and open that. Give that employee dot HBM. HBM means employee dot HBM means Hibernate mapping file dot XML. Next, it will create one XML files. After that, I'll show you one more thing. Inside this, I will show you. I'll write one by one. Okay, guys. Just this is some DTD. Let's keep it, copy paste of it. Okay, close that Hibernate mapping. Next one is class. Next one is we can write n number of classes. We can write n number of classes inside. I'll explain each and everything. Writing is very difficult here. Now what I am doing here is first tag is class. First tag is to which class you want to give mapping with which table in the database. That mapping will give inside this HBM file. After that, we'll give this HBM file inside a configuration file. So Hibernate will load this one. Okay. Now, guys, is it clear, understanding or not?
Yes, sir.
Guys, are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Maybe not. You are not able to hear. Let me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are audible.
Are you able to hear me, guys?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are audible.
Yes, sir.
Guys, are you able to hear me? No?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Sir.
We able to hear you,
So
sir.
you are not replying, guys. But I'm not able to hear your voice, guys.
Hello.
We able to hear you, sir.
Can someone speak?
Sir.
Sir, audible, sir.
I'm not able to hear you people, guys. Maybe your voice I'm not able to hear, but you people are able to hear me. Let me reconnect. Okay.
Okay, sir.